Hey everyone, it's Dawn Clevathal with Stress Free Tax Season. You may know me better yet as your Profit First Professional. If you're in my Profit First for Business Owners group, or if you've been following me at all on YouTube, you'll see that that's something I'm very passionate about, and cash management is one of the key things that I train people in business on how to manage so that your business can thrive. Today's topic is going to be a little bit different because January is a crazy month, at least in my profession, because it is a 1099 season. So if you're new in business, or even if you've been in business for a while, you may not realize what 1099s mean to you as a business owner. So I wanted to go over that with you today, have a little bit of conversation, if we will. I have to look kind of over at two screens because I'm presenting actually on the screen that I'm looking at, which is the 1099 Mastermind one. But if you comment, I'll try to catch it as it goes. Otherwise, I will go back through once we are done and check on those for you. But I wanted to talk to you about 1099s because it is such an important part of running your business. And the reason is 1099s are designed to help the government know who was paid. It's basically what it comes down to. They want to know who received payment so that they know whether or not those people filed their taxes correctly. And in order to do that, they have to enlist you as the business owner to report for them so that they know what that is. So that's what we're going to get into a little bit today. I'm also in the slideshow, I'm going to go through, well, this is the 2020 mindset. I'm going to go through the book that looks like this that might give you a headache if you try to read through the whole thing. I kind of went through and pulled out the key parts that most businesses are going to need. You should read through your 2020 forms so that you know about the changes and things that are going on, but I realize that many of you will not do that. So I thought I will pull out the little pieces and nooks and crannies that seem to fit most of my clients when I'm doing their 1099 so that you at least, you might catch something and go, oh gosh, I do need to do that, or oh, that does fit me. So that is why you'll see as we go along, I want to kind of pull those snippets out for you. So like I said, the 1099 is so that the government knows who got paid. And so changes have happened over the years to whether or not you file. And so I want to talk to you about that as well. So let's look at the next slide and see. So the purpose of these forms, again, it's to let the government know that. But there's different forms. So you may get a little bit confused as to whether or not you need to send these out. Let me jump ahead here a second. I want to see. Okay, so if you've paid someone for an outside service, like a bookkeeper, like someone who's doing your advertising, it might even be specific to your industry. If they're not an employee and you paid them $600 or more, you need to file the 1099 form. There's also a rule that if you've paid rent to them, that you need to file a 1099 form. Of course, there's exceptions to all of these rules. So at the very end of the presentation today, I'm going to show you what the form looks like that you need to ask every vendor that you work with to fill out, and what that form allows you to do. It gives you all the information that tells you whether or not you really need to file this 1099. There's boxes for them to check off that you may not know. That takes some of the confusion out. So that's something that you really want to have on file. You're required to have it on file. You may not know that. This time of the year, it can be really challenging to get people to give you their information because nobody wants to be reported for their taxes. So keep that in mind as well as we go forward. But if you paid $600 to someone for a service, that is going to be the person that you are sending this 1099 form to. What are the deadlines and how do you file? Okay, so the deadlines change every year because they're calendar based. And also this year they just have made so many changes. So they're trying to really capture those people who are paying non-employees versus those who are paying other ways that we pay people out. So we used to have, up until this year, the form that was just the 1099 miscellaneous. Would fill in box 7 with your information from your vendors and just move on. But now they want us to use a specific form that is just for those payments. And that one is called the 1099 NEC. And you can see here, this has the links And the links, again, they're found in that document. So you just go to the 2021 document, and if you're interested in it, let me know and I can link it for you. But you want to have these things furnished to the people that you've worked with by the 31st of January. Some of the deadlines are a little bit different for the electronic filing and the paper filing. So as far as the 1099 NEC, that's the one that you're reporting if you have non-employees that worked for you. Those deadlines really haven't changed this year. The deadline is the 31st to get it mailed to them. And because the 31st falls on a Sunday, the 1st of February is the day that you have to have those electronically filed and sent to the government. The 1099 NEC, the 1099 miscellaneous, that form, the one area that I find my clients need that's still on that form is for reporting rents paid. So if you're doing that, that does need to get mailed out again by the 31st, but you have till March 1st if you're filing by paper and March 31st if you're filing electronically. So your deadline's a little bit different, but we want to make sure that we have those out by the end of this month. Beginning with 2020, we will be using that NEC form to report non-employee compensation. And so here's a list of what's new. So with this form, the accelerated due date for filing the Form 1099 includes non-employee compensation from February 28th to January 31st and eliminated the automatic 30-day extension before. So that's like, who cares about that, right? So really, you just want to pay attention on this section to your reporting guidelines. So now, box 7 that we used in the past to report the non-employees is actually for direct sales payments of $5,000 and more. So do not use the forms that you used last year. In fact, once I get everybody finished signing up to do their 1099s, I'm going to run over to Office Depot and get all the forms for them so that we have the correct items. So again, there's 1099s miscellaneous still exists, but you also have that NEC. That's good. Okay, so what stays on that? That's what I just talked about. So rents. Again, there are other items, other things that are staying on the 1099 miscellaneous, but if you are one of my people who file for rent, this is still going to be on the 1099. So we're going to have 2 forms that we need to submit this year. So real estate rentals paid for office space. However, you don't have to report them if you paid them to a real estate agent or property manager. So that's why that form that I'm giving you at the end is going to be so important, because that is where they tell you whether or not you need to file one for them. And what form do you use for non-employees? So starting this year, for non-employees, you are going to use that 1099-NEC. And like I said, I'm going over as soon as I get everyone signed up to pick up the forms from Office Depot, but I haven't gone in to see. My fingers are crossed that they actually have this one. Otherwise, I might have to mail order it and make sure I get it in on time. The form is shape is a little bit different. It looks kind of more like a W-2. I don't think it really matters too much. However, it's not going to fit on the form that we typically use. So if you have forms left over from last year, really want to look at those and make sure that you're not using anything old. However, you may even need new envelopes. So that's another thing that you want to consider. You may need to get an envelope that's a different size to mail these out. And I know that doesn't seem very important. However, it is very important because those are things that the government looks for. If you don't send it in the right way, they may say that you did not send it in at all. Okay, so you're going to file that 1099 NEC, the non-employee compensation for each person that in the course of your business to whom you paid at least $600 in services performed by someone who's not your employee. That includes parts and materials that you paid for them. So keep that in mind. What types of payments are reportable? So trade or business reporting only. So the distinction here in all these words, like I said, they make me kind of confusing because they want to cover all their bases. But if it is a personal payment, you don't report it. But if there are payments in the course of your business, so if you paid someone to paint your business, that is something that you would report on the 1099 NEC. But if you paid someone to paint your house, you don't need to file this paperwork. which payments do you not have to be reported? So the exceptions, not talk today, on what doesn't have to be reported, payments to corporations. So that's something that we want to keep in mind. Again, that paperwork is called the W-9. When you give that to people, it lets them tell you, so you don't have to guess whether or not you're sending the right thing. So if a company is incorporated, including LLCs, which are not incorporated, but that are filing as corporations, they don't need to be reported on. Now, if you have a corporation or an LLC that is filing as a corporation, you do have to send out the 1099s. You just aren't going to receive any. It's just the way that it's made out. The other thing is merchandise, telegraphs, telephone, freight, those kind of things are not things that you would report. And then the other part I want to mention, make sure you pay attention down here where it says Form 1099-K. This is where it gets a little bit confusing with the 1099s, because some of the payments that you've made to vendors may not qualify for 1099s, even if that form I'm telling you about says that they could qualify. And what I mean by that is, a few years ago, the government decided that maybe we weren't reporting enough, we weren't giving them good enough information or something. So they decided that if you got paid by credit card, then the credit card company would have the responsibility to go ahead and file that paperwork for you. So if you have a merchant account, if the business that you're paying has a merchant account, and that merchant account is how they run your payments and they're taking your payments that way, they're going to get this 1099-K from their processor. So you do not, please, under no circumstances, I have to tell people this every single year, do not send a 1099 to someone that you paid via credit card. Now, you could have paid somebody part cash or part check, over the course of the year and paid them on credit card. So if the credit card payment, if the check payment or cash payment was over $600, you do want to do a 1099, but you're not going to include any of the credit card payments. So this is something that when I'm going through my clients' paperwork at this time of year, I'm definitely pulling that out. You want to make sure that any reports you pull, so that when you're reviewing who to pay, you want to go through there, and if it's a credit card payment, do not report that payment. Again, otherwise they will be double reported. It will look like they made more money than they did, which is really bad for them. The other thing is, a lot of people are using Venmo, or they're using PayPal and different things. PayPal. If it is a business account, PayPal will report the 1099-K for businesses. I think it's making over $20,000 a year. Now, some people get a little confused about this, because what if you paid them, let's say you paid them $1,000, but you're thinking, well, that's less than $20,000. Do I need to send them this? No. And the reason for that is you don't know what other business they've done and whether or not they're meeting that threshold, but PayPal does. So if you've paid with PayPal to a business account the correct way, make a caveat of that, the correct way, then you don't need to worry about that. PayPal will do it. However, because we're only human and we love to save money, there's a good chance that the PayPal payments that you made do not qualify for that 1099-K, and you will need to file a report based on what you've paid them. What I mean is, if you paid somebody with the friends and family feature of PayPal, then it did not get reported to the government, and you have a liability to do that. You need to report it because you didn't run it properly. And that's why it's a really bad idea to try to save them fees by doing this, because what if the government were to come to you and say, okay, well, you didn't file these properly. It's a lot of fees for you. The fees are very, very high if you have not filed. Your 1099s, if it looks like you did not file, I think it's minimum $250 per incident. So you want to make sure that you're definitely doing that right. Venmo is not for business. I'm sure there's other ones as well. I think Zeal does not report to the government either. So if you've paid anyone electronically in a way that wouldn't go through a credit card processor, then you're going to want to look at issuing them a 1099. So what conditions are required for the 1099? So you're going to enter in box 1. Again, we're going to have to be really careful for those of us who are used to doing these reports. We want to make sure we're really careful and reporting it correctly, because it's not box 7 anymore. On this new form, it's box 1. We're entering non-employee compensation of $600 or more. That includes fees, commissions, prizes, awards for services performed as a non-employee, and other forms of compensation for services that were performed for your trade or business as an individual who is not an employee. It even includes fish purchases for cash. I don't know if that is something that's in your business, but just keep in mind it's that $600 limit. And you made a payment to the individual partnership. In some cases, a corporation, that's if you are paying federal funds out. Most of my clients are not doing that, so we don't usually talk about that one too much. Which payments are reported? Okay, so this I just dived a little bit deeper in here. Again, paperwork, it's pretty long, but I wanted to pull out the sections that would make more sense to you. So for box 1 on this form, it's professional service fees, such as fees to attorneys, including corporations, accountants, architects, contractors, engineers, fees paid by one professional to another professional. Like if you're splitting your fees or doing referral fees, payments by attorneys to witnesses or experts in the legal field, and then payments for services, including payments for parts and materials used to perform the service, because the person you paid has the obligation to write that off on their taxes. So you report what you paid, and they end up doing the other part of it, portioning out the expenses on their end. So you do not need to do that. Okay, so what does this form look like? Here's what the new form is like. You can see instead of having a box 7, we have non-employee compensation here in box 1. It's pretty straightforward. It's not terribly difficult to do, but if you don't have the forms and you don't have the system set up, it could be something that gives you a headache. I don't want you to have a headache, right? I want you to be able to get this done and know that it is done correctly. Here's what that form looks like. So how do I get the info to file it? Well, this form is really great. It's called the W-9. I'm going to make a note. I should post it for you. I'm going to post this. Okay, so when you give them this form, they fill out all of this area here. I know you guys can't see it super clearly on the screen, but what this tells them is, what they tell you with this form is the names that are supposed to be on the tax return. This is super important, right? Because it has to match the actual records that the IRS has, and you may call them by a different name than what the business is actually registered. So that gives you the business registration name up here. Then they can also check off one of these boxes here, and these are the ones that tell you whether or not they would need to have that 1099. Because like here, it's individual sole proprietors, LLCs, C Corps, S Corps, partnership. Like this is just information that tells you right away, or tells your tax preparer right away, whether or not they need to file that. They give you their address, which is really important. Even if you do this at the beginning of each year, you should at least reach out to them and find out if their address has changed. We've moved twice in the last 2 years, so I can imagine that people would move and maybe not think to tell you that that happened. And then the next section here, they give you their social security number or their tax ID number, and that is the other piece of information you need for this form. And then again here, you just have them sign. I'll give you this. This is something that you should get every time you're beginning to work with someone. It's a great time to do it because they're excited to work with you. You're excited to work with them. They give you this information freely. Right now, this time of year, it can be challenging to get this out of people because they do not want to give it to you. They do not want you to report how much they made. Not everybody, but in most cases, if they could avoid it, they're going to want to avoid that. This is also another reason, the 1099 issue, why even though you can start filing your taxes at the very end of January, you should wait, because you don't want to file and then find out that someone reported income that they paid you that you maybe forgot about, and then now your taxes are off. So I always recommend waiting a few weeks after that deadline of the 31st, just to make sure that anything that's rolling in can even be like, it could be your interest and just different things you might not think about when you are getting ready to do your taxes. So definitely give yourself a little bit of leeway. And also, the sooner you mail these out and you get this back, you can get started with 1099s, and then that way the person gets theirs sooner rather than later. And what does all of this mean for your business? What it comes down to is you have to send 1099s by January 31st. And if you don't have a system to file them, I can help you. I've been doing this for my clients since 2007. This is the first year that I've opened it up to everyone, really. But I'm posting this primarily in my Facebook group, because I know that we have 850 plus business owners in there that may or may not realize that this is something that they need to do. So if this is you, if you just started your business this year, which we have a ton of you guys in there, if you're just getting started and you're like, what, this makes no sense, I don't know what I need, reach out to me. You can PM me. I will get you help. It's very affordable. It's $125 for your first two. That includes filing, envelopes, everything, me sending it out for you. And then it's $10 per contractor that you add on after that. So a lot of smaller businesses, the first two covers everybody they've worked with. So that is why the first two are included in that base price. And again, it's only $10 for each additional one, just to make it affordable for you to get this done. So if you don't have a system in place, please reach out. I think the deadline, let me see what the date is for Monday real quick. I would like to hear from you by the 18th or 19th if you are planning on having me do those for you, so that we can get you started. What I do is I make sure you have that W-9 form. You get that sent out to all of your contractors. You get that back. The other information we need at that point is how much did you pay them over the year. And once you do that, it's off of your plate. It's onto mine. Depending on how many you have, I summarize it for you, send it back for signature. Once you've signed, I can file, and we just move forward, and we're out of January's crazy tax month with these 1099s. So as always, DM me if you ever need any help. You can even reply to this when you're going through it, but I'm here for you. And what else was I saying? And so next month we will have another mastermind, but that will be more Profit First related. Again, I usually do all Profit First stuff in the group, but I thought you guys might need this. So if you do, please give me a call.